I really should not have cut my hair. It's the closest thing to a bun that we're gonna get today. Ooh, my first costume that was period was for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and the director told me that I had to make something that could fit on anyone from a size like 41 waist to a size 16 waist, and so I made these heavily corset styled ball gowns that could be, you know, pulled down to be really, really small and then let out to be really, really big. And because I had to make them able to fit anyone, because we didn't know who was going to be in the scene yet, and we had, you know, weeks, they really were kind of crap. And then my budget was like $5 a gown. So I wound up doing was I went on a party website and I ordered satin, like polyester satin, that you would use to cover like whole walls for a party so that your color theme is incorporated, not really, you know, to make a dress out of. But I was able to do it for less than $5 a dress, and I mean, they weren't the prettiest thing in the world, but from stage, they were gorgeous-ish. They worked for the scene and they worked for the show, but I'm very embarrassed still. If we're talking historic costumes, it is this one because I made it in a weekend on a $2 budget out of a sheet that I found in the lost and found of one of my campus's libraries, and some fabric that I picked up from a Walmart, and some trims that I'd had laying around for a while, and I'm pretty impressed with that. Well, I kind of already did my dream project. I got to choreograph something and make the costumes for it as well for Terpsichore at my college, which is like a yearly dance concert, and that was really a dream project. But now that I'm sewing selfishly and just for myself and no one else, I have quite a few things on the back burner. Like, I want to make myself a Victorian morning gown, and I want to make myself a Civil War era gown, and my sisters-in-law and I are having a murder mystery party that's Jane Austen themed, so I get to make a much better Jane Austen dress than this one, and I get to do it like 4 times over. I'm very excited. So I guess I have a lot of dream projects, but who doesn't? I think everyone has just so many things on the back burner perpetually. At least I feel like I do. I used to hate hand stitching things because machine stitching is so much faster, but now that I'm older and I'm very persnickety, I really love the hand sewing way more than I ever thought that I would. I think that a sewing job that I hate is whenever I get a garment that needs to be basically reconstructed because it's falling apart, either because the actors have been rough on it or because, you know, life has been rough on it. If it's not like a costume piece, if it's just a normal clothing piece, I hate having to like put something that is threadbare back together, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I don't mind darning specifically, and I don't mind like lining something with a strength layer that doesn't already have one, but doing all of the things to try to save a piece of clothing, it's stressful. It's really stressful and I don't love it. But then a sewing task that I love, I think the planning, because you get to dream and like your budget isn't real yet. Like, I remember when I used to do community theater, whenever I had a show that was mine or a scene that was mine, I would just like sit there for hours and I'd be on Pinterest and everything, researching it and putting everything together, and it was so fun. And then I would go and I'd talk to the director and he'd be like, okay, well, you have $5 for this whole scene. What can you give me? And then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to scale all that back. So I guess I like the dreaming. I think I really actually prefer wool, because I find that silk can be really, well, it's difficult to work with, but then wearing it is kind of stressful for me personally. And I've also found that if you tell an actor like, oh yeah, your dress is silk, they're gonna be like, I'm sorry, what? And they're gonna be really paranoid, and it gets to them a little bit. I've found some of them love it though. I had one girl who I was like, yep, your dress is black silk, and she was like, yes it is, and she rocked that dress and she had such a good time in it. But I've also had many more people who I'm like, yeah, your dress is silk, and I should not have told them, because then it gets in their head and they're like afraid to drink water backstage and all of those things. So I really prefer wool. It wicks moisture off of you so you can sweat in it without getting too uncomfortable, which I know sounds counterintuitive because wool is so warm, but yeah, I find it's really conducive for movement when you're wearing it. It's a dream to work with. It doesn't have the best variety. Like, if you wanted to get a wool that's patterned, you probably would have to either embroider it or print on it yourself. But, I mean, I really love wool. It might just be because I did Brigadoon. I think it would be more interesting to go to an event where everyone had chosen their own theme, because everyone would probably pick something that they didn't have the opportunity to do very often and that they really liked. So I think the conversation would be very interesting at a party where everyone has picked their own theme. I know that a lot of people who've done this challenge said that they preferred a themed party because then everyone's cohesive and you can get these big beautiful pictures and it's just so heavenly and you're all in it together and it's lovely. And I do agree with that sentiment, but I'm really bad at taking pictures. So I would leave this beautiful heavenly event where I should have taken like all of the photos, and I would just feel sad because I didn't take any photos. I think that I would tend to prefer an intimate dinner, just because I was homeschooled, and I mean, I'm sure half of us were homeschooled, but huge crowds are not something that I'm very used to. And my fiance Bobby, who I would of course be dressing up and making come to these things with me, he super does not handle crowds well. I'm still gonna make him go to quite a few costumed events once, you know, this whole mess is over a little bit and we're all allowed out of our houses again. But yeah, we have some plans to attend some things, and yeah, I definitely prefer the smaller things because I find you get to have real one-on-one conversations, and I really love people. So that was a really long way of saying I'm a huge nerd. I have been machine sewing since I was 8 years old, and I find it to be really fast, and I'm really good at it. But I really like the challenge of hand sewing, and I like the control of hand sewing, but I really like the speed of machine sewing. What I tend to do is my construction lines on a garment that won't be visible. Like, I tend to put a garment together on my machine and then do all of the fiddly stuff by hand, just because I find that it goes faster and I still get a beautiful finished result, and I almost never notice the difference between a machine hem and a hand done hem unless I'm like right up on top of a garment. And I'm very used to sewing for theater, where no one is going to be right up on top of your garment and it's going to have so much light on it that you're not really going to be able to tell how much care was taken with it for the most part. I like wigs for quick changes. Hairpieces are a necessary part of costuming, especially historic costuming, and especially if you've recently chopped all of your hair to about here because of a bad breakup, because, you know, that's just a dumb thing to do. Oof, that's hard, because I almost never have the budget to shop small or support anyone. I've been looking at American Duchess's shoes for years, and I've never been able to justify buying a pair. I am sure that I will in the future, but until then, I just haven't had a chance to. There's a company called Delp Stockings and Gloves, and I have purchased stockings from them quite a few times. I really love their stockings. I have like a blue and white striped pair that I wear way more than I should. And I'm a very tall girl, so whenever I order stockings from anywhere, they're almost always too short. But Delp does a really good job of having long enough stockings for me. They also will have stockings that are 100% wool or 100% silk or 100% cotton, and that are made to like historic standards. It's a really cool website. I'll link it below. I'll link all of these down below. And then this is kind of cheating, but Aranea Black, Aranea Black costumes or corsets. I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but she has just an amazing list of resources in the realm of corset making. So when it comes to like custom fitting a corset for just one body, which I'm in the process of doing for myself, she has a lot of really comprehensive, non-scary information, and she just makes it feel doable and achievable, which I really like. So I'll have her linked down below. And then the next two are actually local to me. One of them unfortunately just went out of business, but they had historic photographs, like this whole table of just like 1960s to 1920s, like just old photographs that they'd gotten from people's homes. And like you could go through there and find like heirloom photos from the early Victorian. Like I was able to actually hold in my hand like wedding photos of someone's great-great-great-great-grandfather, or like photos that were taken of soldiers before they went off to war. And it was so cool to be able to just see these people. And then they also would sell vintage fabric sometimes that they would get from like a little old lady who had been storing fabric since the 1920s and just had never gotten around to it. Whenever she would die, they'd go and get her stuff and put it out on the shelves. And this was DPS Antiques. The DPS stood for Dead People Stuff. And everyone who worked there was just such a fun time. But unfortunately they recently closed down. I'm not quite sure why or what happened, but we all miss them a lot, and I miss them so much. But hopefully something cool will come in that space to replace it. The other small business that I really like that's local to me is Choffie's. It's not technically a costuming shop, it's a coffee shop that also sells candies, but the owner, Shelly, she's really into like historic fashion and historic methods, and she homesteads. And so sometimes when I'm like really stuck on a project, I'll go down to Choffie's and just kind of talk to Shelly for a little while, and it always brightens my day at the very, very least. Cat's costumery. Oh my goodness, this thing is just falling off. This is why this pattern is not liked by anybody. Also, I'm home alone and I wasn't able to button the back. Anyways, Kat's costumery is wonderful. She is self-taught, and she does a lot of cosplay, and she's very new to the craft, and she kind of blows me out of the water. And it's really impressive to see someone who's like just picked it up just absolutely zoom with it. And I love her attitude, I love the aesthetics of her videos, I love her music, she's wonderful, and I love her. Lady of the Wilderness, I watched her 20 questions video, and like, I don't know, I jived with it. She's really cool, she has gorgeous hair, and she's a really talented costumer, and she does really good, like, in-depth, very niche tutorials about historic costuming, and I really appreciate that. I feel like the more niche you can go, the more needed you are. Frock, I love her videos because she's just so chaotic, and I feel that. Like, she just kind of comes in and she's like, okay, I bought supplies from Walmart, let's go. And I feel like that's a very realistic expectation. I feel like there's a lot of historic costumers that, you know, they're working with what they've got, and what they've got is a Walmart. And I feel like there needs to be more Walmart sewist representation, because you know what? Not everything from Walmart's terrible, except for this lace. The more I'm looking at it on camera, the worse I like it, actually. I maybe shouldn't have worn a costume to do this video, because now I've just ruined this costume for myself. Another YouTuber that I really like, that I met through, well, I didn't meet them, but I was introduced to them through this 20 questions thing, is Willoughby and Rose. I understand that she's also just starting out on YouTube, so, you know, she's a lot like me in that respect, where we only have like a small handful of videos and like a small handful of followers, and I feel that. I really feel that. And she's also just lovely, and she has a baby. I'm pretty sure she's the one that has a baby. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. I watched literally a lot of these videos. But yeah, she's lovely, and I like her stuff, and I want to be friends. That's all. Also, of course, I have to shout out So Loud for doing this whole thing. It's been so lovely. Even though I can't leave my house, I kind of feel like I got to know a bunch of people. I'm kind of an eavesdropper by nature, so being able to sit and listen to one-sided conversations, it's really been helpful just to hear people talk. Wow. This is starting to feel so dystopian. I didn't choose a favorite color when I was a kid because I was afraid that the other colors would be offended. So I really don't have one still. If I had to pick, I would probably say either like a deep purple or a deep blue, but it's hard to say. Unpopular opinion, but I really prefer pearls. You have to get up close to them to really see like the shine and the sheen on a pearl. And I've put a lot of really tacky, shiny things on dresses for theater reasons. I do want to, in the future, do something with a lot of beads and embellishments. My wedding dress, I am going to be putting a lot of beads and embellishments on, but a lot of them are pearls, to be absolutely honest with you. I have always wanted to go to Austin Fest. It just sounds fun. That and then the Irish Festival. I want to make a really cute, like, Irish traditional gown, real traditional Irish gown, and I want to make like a really cool matching kilt for my fiance because we found his clan and we found what his plaid would have been for the region that they came from, and like we were able to trace his family history back to like his original motto and his original crest, and I love that. I'm very excited. I'm so excited that my dress is falling off. Again, simplicity, why? I really do love this dress, and it stays on fine when I'm able to like tie it. I just need a friend to tie it for me, and at the moment I'm stuck at home alone, and the lighting was really good, so I didn't want to wait. I should have waited. I really like mojitos. I think I would be happy meeting anyone, really. I really only know like 4 other people that sew costumes, and they're all in their 50s or so, and you know, just the fact that there's other people that are so into this. Like when I found the online community, I was so baffled, honestly, that there's other people out there that are as much of a nerd for this as I am. And even when I found the history bounding community, I lost my freaking mind because I had been doing that. I didn't know what the term was, but like I found Rachel Makes's channel and I was like, so I think honestly anyone, like DM me, like let's make it happen. But if I had to like pick someone, I think it would be, I want to say Rachel Makesy, just because she was one of the first people that I found, and then Michaela Tewers, because not to be creepy, but like I also live in middle of nowhere, Ohio, and I know that we don't live very far apart, so it would just be so easy to like run into her at like a Kroger or a Goodwill. Like we frequent the same places. Plain or patterned? I prefer plain actually, because I really like to do nitty-gritty construction work, and I feel like the details show more on plain fabric. So especially whenever I'm sewing an Edwardian gown or a Georgian gown where there's a lot of like really intricate pin tucks and pleats and things, I really do prefer a plain fabric. I actually prefer to draft because I'm wearing an example as to why patterns that you purchase are not always great. This thing is like not meant to move in, it's meant to sit on your body and look pretty. So anytime I try to move my arms, well, first off, I can't really lift them. The arm's eye like was not drafted for that. And then also like the underbust, it's so, I just would have preferred to have drafted it myself. That's hard. I like the feeling of being in a corset. So I think turn of the century actually, because things started to shorten and be less hot and less layered, but there were still corsets happening and it was still like that dreamy, whimsical aesthetic, but it wasn't like Gibson Girl and it wasn't high effort. Well, I guess Gibson Girl was actually when the effort started to decrease, but I digress. I am really, really good at dyeing hair. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope that you stick around for the next one. Feel free to leave me a comment in the description below and tell me if you were surprised by any of the facts. And also tell me to just fix this dress because it needs fixed or taken apart or burned.